9 companions. So be it. You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring.
Right. Where are we going?
There is a saying in life, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people that you choose to be around. And I think that saying can be applied to role-playing games, a genre that oftentimes features a wide array of characters that the player can choose to interact with, and even bring along with them. But unfortunately, due to limitations, there are a finite amount of people that can be present in our fantasy world, which means the options players can surround themselves with are finite, and each character is extremely important. So in this week's Game Design Talk, we're going to discuss how game designers create parties in these role-playing games, and how they convince us to not only choose people to join us in our adventures, but how they really get us to care about them. A party is a group of characters that adventure together in these role-playing games, and while the understanding of parties changes considerably on a game-to-game basis, the usual formula is this. The main character is controlled by the player, and a series of non-player party members are to some extent controlled by the AI. Now the extent of AI control changes based on the game. Some games will have minimal AI interaction limited to dialogue and conversations. Look at Baldur's Gate 3, a game that allows you to otherwise control all their actions in exploration and only controls minimal conversation. And other games will have you control very minimal with your companion, being their own separate entity that follows you around and simply just takes your commands. This system allows you to construct a group of characters that have a reason for being together and can complement each other. The rule of thumb when including characters that can join your party is usually based on the gameplay. Some games have single companions, others have parties of 4, Infinity Engine games have parties of 6. That is all dependent on what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to create a vast fellowship Lord of the Rings style, or do you want more of an independent solo relationship, having single companions for the player? The difficult part often comes in constructing the party, not the amount of people in it. Now, when you're constructing a party, there are usually a few different aspects of gameplay the designer is trying to influence, but the main philosophy is that some characters are good at some things and bad at others. And once we understand that each character has to be good at some things and bad at others, the designer then needs to go about applying that to different systems. The most common systems in RPGs are combat and dialogue, and each one is an entirely different beast, but some similarities do apply. For example, in combat, codependency is key. A good party requires the player to manage the strengths and weaknesses of each character they select, to achieve some method of a well-oiled machine. We often see characters broken up into classes or roles. Warrior, spellcaster, healer. Each character is going to want to provide something to the player when they're in a combat situation. It's the reason I choose Alistair to join my party in Dragon Age Origins instead of Zevran, because I need somebody to fulfill a close combat tank role for my party. And it's for that reason combat can be a little more one-dimensional when choosing party members. We choose characters based on their abilities, what this person can do for us in the heat of battle. The real difficulty comes in dialogue. A designer has to create vastly different characters from one another, where sometimes a player might want characters with duplicate combat roles, for example several fighters or an all-mage party. When it comes to dialogue and how we interact with our party members, it's important they have different personalities, goals, and opinions. They have to be distinct from one another. And we want them to interact with not just us, but other party members. We want them vocal about their opinions on what we and our fellow party members are doing, their goal in joining up with us. Whereas combat codependency is king, in dialogue, companion reactivity is really what you're looking for. If we look at Infinity Engine games like Baldur's Gate 2 or Pillars of Eternity, every character is extremely unique from the other. Each has their own motivations for accompanying you and can leave some memorable impressions on the players. In addition, they are vocal, not afraid to speak up when they think you're making some less than stellar decisions. These characters have their own alignments and views, and it's important to share them, or else they end up feeling like blank slates. The Dragon Age series adapts this formula as well to great effect, allowing you to spend time with characters alone, learn more about them in camp, and giving you the option to romance them if they like you enough, or having them leave the party or attack the player if they grow to hate you enough. The hardest part about player reactivity is balance. If characters are reacting to what we, the player, do, what consequences come from actively fighting against their viewpoints, and what perks come from actively fighting with their viewpoints? If eventually a character leaves, if we don't keep in their good graces, how is that displayed to us, to the player? Are there hints being dropped, reactions to decisions we make that have us take a second look at where our relationship is going? The goal is to eventually have these reactions stack towards a breaking point. It can be as simple as seeing saying they admire us to legitimate betrayals due to our choices and opinions. Simple in theory, but the difficulty comes in execution. Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire is a game where the goal of the system was for companions to change their relationship with you and with others through topics. A character would have tags like pro-animancy or anti-religious, and would react based on how they feel about those topics. The plan was that over time it would lead towards those breakpoints in a relationship, either positive or negative. Once you hit that breakpoint, there is an explosion that the player has to deal with. The problem is, in RPGs, there are oftentimes hundreds of dialogue choices and decisions. Sometimes you might want people in your party that will not get along with each other. And in this game in particular, when two companions have different ideals, well, you can imagine how they react to each other. Zodi is a priestess character, and Pallegina is a character that hates gods and all religions. So speaking to them for any length of time takes what would be a slow and gradual increase towards a breaking point, and increases the speed to which the party members seem straight up psychotic. It's important that it's a gradual increase, and the player is given opportunities to address it or acknowledge that this is where the relationship is going. The player is much more willing to deal with consequences if they have some inclination it is moving in that direction. Nobody likes to be blindsided. Companion reactivity can take other forms as well. Instead of just reacting to how a character acts, companions can react to the environment around them. Some of the most memorable companion moments for me in Dragon Age Inquisition were how party members reacted to seeing that first dragon, or the time we spent in the Nightmare Plane. Seeing people react with human emotions to just, scenarios that I would react to really goes a long way for making me fall in love with the character. And I think there's a lot of experimentations to do with reactivity in party-based systems, as it's probably the most powerful tool we have when creating good parties in RPGs. It touches on player agency and makes the characters feel even more alive, like real people we're interacting with. And in the end, is that not what we want from people we plan to adventure with for hundreds of hours? Codependency in combat, companion reactivity, and a diverse cast of characters is core to a good party in role-playing games. There's no one way to do it, and that's a good thing. It's the reason we have games where you can create your own party, ones that give us established characters we go to love and hate. And in the end, if you end up getting any of those reactions from your players, then I think your RPG party is doing something right. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's game design talk on RPG parties and games, but perhaps I didn't touch on what makes a good party in your eyes. Maybe it's not codependency or reactivity that makes a good party in your eyes. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear it. So go ahead and leave a comment below. Who's your favorite party member in an RPG game? Or even your favorite party-based RPG? Always love hearing what the community has to say. Until next time, this was Cameron Zistris. Keep designing, never lose your passion, and I will see you guys in the next game design talk video. Bye guys.